Well, the so-called debt ceiling negotiations continued yesterday, and it's hard to see how Republicans actually make progress with this White House. Here, listen to what Karine Jean-Pierre, speaking on behalf of the president, said about it.
You should ask the speaker this question. This is his job. This is his constitutional duty to move forward and get the debt limit done. That is a question for him. They are the legislative, it is a co-equal branch, as you know. They are the legislative body, and this is what they're supposed to do. That is a question, seriously, that is a question for the speaker and the MAGA Republicans who are literally holding our economy hostage.
MAGA Republicans literally holding the account. Literally, she used the word literally. I don't think she knows what that word means. Then later, John Kirby, speaking on behalf of the National Security Council, commenting how the president would be overseas for some of these negotiations, and he said this.
Issue. We wouldn't even be having this discussion about the effect of the debt ceiling debate on the trip if Congress would do its job.
Wow, the brazen deceit. Let's bring in Congresswoman Claudia Tenney of New York, who sits on the Ways and Means Committee, a pretty important one when it comes to all this stuff. I don't know. Seems to me you guys have done your job. You have legislated. In fact, you're the only body in this entire town that's done what you're supposed to do, which is pass a bill for the debt limit. What am I missing?
Exactly. We passed a bill, and the Senate Republicans are on board with us, and we're all together here. It's just the Democrats who refuse to do something about inflation, and this is a problem. And inflation is a tax on everyone. I know we hear that, but it is really serious because we're looking at potentially a recession, as the Fed's only answer to everything is to raise interest rates instead of to deal with this inflation problem, which is caused by excessive spending primarily and by our terrible energy policies coming out of the White House, cutting off our energy independence. 30% of that inflationary number comes from energy costs. And I come from New York State, where we're not allowed to have gas stoves. I mean, it's come to this absurd level at this point. Natural gas has done more to bring down emissions and to really unleash American energy independence to help our economy. Yet New York State is cutting us off from our abundant natural resources. So how are we doing this? Joe Biden, unlike, by the way, President Trump and Nancy Pelosi, actually averted this crisis by actually coming up with a deal. They were proactive. As much as I can't stand Nancy Pelosi, she knew it was going to be a problem, and she got in and solved this problem. Remember all the discussions where Trump would say, "Hey, Chuck and Nancy were in the White House." I love his informality
Yeah,
there. But
yeah.
look, this is something that is showing a total lack of leadership on the Biden administration. We know that he's been a terrible leader, no leadership, and the bureaucrats are running the asylum in there, and this is the problem. But the American people are lying here, wait, about to go into recession, about to potentially see more collapses when we talk about banks not being able to take the pressure from the interest rate hikes that are coming potentially from the Fed. So we have a lot of issues that we need to resolve, and we did that with our bill that we passed in the House. And kudos to Kevin McCarthy and everyone who stood up for this.
Agreed. And again, the pressure should be not just on the president, but I mean, listen, if you want to take Karine Jean-Pierre's statement to heart, she's right. Legislation comes from Congress. The House has done their job. It's Chuck Schumer that's the problem. We just saw 6 Democrats vote with Republicans on a DC policing bill yesterday. He can't keep his own caucus straight. I doubt Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema and a few of those other senators want to go down this path with Chuck Schumer. At what point is the pressure on them to do something?
Well, look at this though. We have 40% of our debt that was created was when Nancy Pelosi was the majority leader in their first and second tenures as the as the speaker, actually. And so, where's Chuck Schumer? He is not afraid. He's afraid. He's not dealing with this left wing, which, by the way, is controlling New York. That's why the New York Democrats control everything. We have a toothless governor. Kathy Hochul, has a veto-proof majority. She can't do anything about it. She's allowing them to drive the agenda, which is driving New York into the ground. And as I've said over and over, we were once the Empire State. The Industrial Revolution started in our state. We had all the great corporate headquarters there. Everybody got their entrepreneurial starts, whether it's IBM, GE, all these great companies in New York. We're the Exodus state now because everyone's leaving because of the lack of leadership on the part of Chuck Schumer, the Albany Democrats who run everything. It's a cabal. And yet
Yeah.
here we are coming up with a solution for the American people. This multi-trillion dollar, almost 32 trillion in debt. We made a modest dent in this, a little bit, like 4.7 trillion over the course of 10 years. That's hardly a huge number. That is a very doable, reasonable ask for the Democrats, and yet they won't come forward and do anything about it because they're paralyzed by this far left Marxist organization, which has now become the Democratic Party.
So given that, how does this resolve? I mean, I think you're right. They are beholden to the Marxists, and Biden, he can't make a move without those people who are whispering in his ear and telling him what he's supposed to do. And meanwhile, they're calling you MAGA fascists. They're saying that you're going to let veterans die in the streets and children go hungry, and that you're responsible for the fentanyl crisis on the border. So how do these two sides come together?
Look, I think at some point the people are going to stand up because look at the Democrats just keep lying. You know, we disproved we had every great veteran who serves in our side on the Republican side stand up and say, wait a minute, like let's say uncle on this. This is not the cause of this is there's nothing in our bill that would harm veterans. I'm the mother of a Marine, a Naval Academy graduate. Do you think I would vote to harm our veterans when I've been a champion of veterans and veterans' rights? The Republicans are the champions of our veterans. We're the ones that stand up for our police. We're not defunding and demoralizing the police. So I think the Democrats are starting to look very lack credibility. Their claims are implausible, and I think people are starting to realize that. And I think there's going to come a point where Joe Biden's going to have to buckle on this. And if he doesn't, this entire situation is going to be a disaster for the American people. And inflation will lead us to recession, which will lead us to closures, which will lead us to a downturn in our economy, which leads to lack of security on the international stage as well. Nothing is better for our defense as a nation than a strong economy. And the Democrats have been destroying it every single day since Joe Biden got elected.
Congresswoman, if I could ask you another question that involves your Ways and Means Committee, and that has to do with your oversight in the IRS. Last week, the commissioner of the IRS swore under oath to your committee that there would be no retaliation against the whistleblower who has come forward to say that the Hunter Biden investigation is being impeded right now. But we're now learning from that whistleblower's attorneys that he and his entire team has been removed from that investigation. That is a retaliation by the definition of the whistleblower law. So what's going to be done now?
Absolutely, and we've got to hold them accountable. Now is the time to go after the IRS. Of course, in our bill, we talk about defunding the police arm of the IRS. You know, the gun-toting IRS agents that show up at the door to enforce the law, not the people who are the taxpayer advocates. Guess who have become the taxpayer advocates? The Congress members. We deal with these IRS problems every single day because the IRS isn't doing its job. They're too busy protecting political people on their side, such as Hunter Biden. But I think it's really critical that we go after the IRS agent, even hold him accountable, potentially impeaching him for his pledge to say that they're not going to allow this to happen. How do you take your top people, your most experienced, who've been working on this issue for a few years, and all of a sudden just let them go and take them off the mission? I mean, that is a direct conflict of what he had to say. But you know what? Liars win in this community in Washington, D.C., and it's an unfortunate thing. You know, meanwhile, they're obsessed with George Santos, who we know is a pathological liar. But George Santos hasn't harmed the American people. He's harmed himself mostly. But they're focused away from Joe Biden, biggest liar probably ever to serve. Why isn't Elizabeth Warren? Why isn't Blumenauer? Why isn't Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, McCabe, Comey, Hillary? All these liars who came together to try to bring down and interfere with an election in 2016 with the Obama administration and his appointees behind them to create this fake Steele dossier to come up with this this crossfire hurricane that Durham has exposed. I mean, I urge people at least read the summary, at least read the executive summary. When you start reading this thing, you realize how corrupt our FBI is, our IRS, all the arms of government, the most powerful institutions in our government being controlled by the Democrats from the Obama administration right through to the Biden administration, some of the same people. We've got a clean house. The people at the top have to go. If they aren't forced to resign, they need to be impeached and forced to resign. And we need to clean house whoever is going to run for president and win the presidency next time. And I hope it's a Republican. We have got a clean house. We can't take the soft road that we took last time.
All of that.
And unfortunately, President Trump was under siege the whole time. And I mean, unfairly, as we see and learn now. Although Devin Nunes pointed this out a couple of years ago. It's not like we didn't know it. We just have more and more proof of it.
Well, now finally we have validation from the Durham report, which is, of course, according to your colleague there in New York, Jerry Nadler, been discredited by well, by Jerry Nadler. We got to leave it there. Congresswoman Tenney, thanks for joining us. More to come on O'Connor tonight.